For more, we welcome in CBS Sports WNBA analysts Terrika, Foster-Brasby, and Ayala on the court after what an incredible game this was. Terrika, the Aces complete the sweep. What stood out to you most about their third championship in the last 4 seasons?
God, I don't even know if I could pick just one thing because there are so many things. First and foremost, A'ja Wilson, Finals MVP, regular season MVP, scoring champion, defensive player of the year, first person ever, men's or women, NBA or WNBA, to ever accomplish that feat. And I think that in itself speaks to what stood out about this Aces team. You just can't do anything with her, and you can't do anything about her, and you certainly don't want to be the person to have to match up one-on-one with her. And it was a struggle for everyone that they threw out there. Now, granted, there was a few moments in which Kalani Brown and even Tawana Bonner was starting to kind of have a little bit of success, if that's what you want to call it. But for the most part, A'ja Wilson just dominated this game, and that to me is what stood out more than anything.
Not if that's what you want to call it, Terrika. But I think what stood out to me is that we knew coming into this series that Phoenix was going to play a physical game. They wanted to hang their hat on defense, as we talked about earlier, and the Aces said, well, we're going to one-up that. And they came into this series, a team that had struggled offensively, defensively, to find their identity and their footing, and they did what they needed to do. Everyone played their role, and that's how they were able to close out the series tonight. Even though Phoenix did make a late push after Nate Tibbetts gets ejected, we saw that Alyssa Thomas went down with what we thought might be an injury which would keep her out, but we already know she's played through some shoulder injuries before, Terrika. Yeah. But I think it's just overall an impressive Aces performance. And when you come from where they were in the standings, you don't think that they're going to be able to sweep in the finals, even looking at how they had to get to the finals, but they got it done.
Right, you mentioned that if you look at where they came from in August, they were 14-14. There was apparent frustrations on the sidelines. You could see it boiling over. Then they win 16 straight to get to the postseason. And Erica, as you mentioned too, they had to work for each of those series wins, getting the sweep. What did you learn about this Aces team as a whole this season?
It's resiliency, it's professionalism, and although I didn't necessarily like what Kelsey Plum had to say at the time in 2023 about the New York Liberty, when she mentioned that there is a love and a care that is required to get to this level, I think that's also what you see from this Aces squad. It took a lot of character for the team to hear what A'ja had to say after that 53-point loss to Minnesota, and for them to receive it with love. And that tells me that there's also a lot of trust, not just in now the 4-time MVP, Finals MVP, but also in A'ja Wilson as a leader, in Becky Hammon as a leader. And that's what she talked about after the game as the trophies were being presented, that's exactly what this is. This is a unit, this is a team, there's trust, and that's how they were able to get it done.
Absolutely, and if you hear all the noise in the background, it's because the players are just
right over
now leaving the court, and there are fans here that are from all over, because Aces fans travel incredibly well, but they have been here the entire time rooting their team on, cheering their team on, just really providing that love and that spark, and I think that also helps to propel this team. But as you mentioned, Erica, one thing that they do well is they know how to play together, they know how to learn each other, and Becky Hammon talked about that a few days ago, that this was probably one of the toughest seasons that she had to coach, because she had to remind them a few times, like, hey, I know this isn't necessarily the exact same team, but you guys know each other.
Right.
And you guys know how to play together. You know how to win together. You know how to lose together. So you know how to come together in the moments that are necessary. And this was a season in which they had to do that more often than not. But at the end, they made it happen, and they made it happen once again on the road. Eventually, we'll see them win a championship in their building at some point, I'm guessing.
Well, listen, they're getting closer, right? Vegas is not that far from Phoenix. It's a quick little road trip over there, so they're getting closer to it. But Terrika, you mentioned just how well this team knows each other, how well the chemistry is working. 3 titles in 4 seasons for Vegas, and it doesn't seem like anything is flinching. Where does this rank among the most dominant runs that we've seen in league history?
Ooh, I don't know about the most dominant runs, because I think if you win 4 back-to-back championships, that's dominant.
Come on,
so
Terrika.
I cannot give the Houston Comets the most dominant team, but I will say that this team is probably, I think, one of the scariest dynasties that we have seen, because each and every one of these championships have been different. We saw this championship team in 2023 start the season as if we knew they were going to win a championship. They surprised everybody in 2022, and this year I think they showed resiliency more than anything else. So I feel like, as it relates to versatility in a championship, as it relates to figuring out how to keep the core, which is something that a lot of teams never get an opportunity to do, that in itself needs to be credited, that they were able to retain Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, and A'ja Wilson, which is the primary core. And that's not something every team has the ability to do. But I just think that this team was more versatile, that this dynasty has been more versatile, and that they've shown that you can win a championship in various different ways, not with the same formula every time.
I have to agree with Terrika first and foremost that, for my money, for my opinion, it's the Houston Comets that have set the tone. You win 4 consecutive, and there have been other teams that have won 4 titles, but never consecutive, so you have to have Houston in the conversation. The Aces are now in a position where they could get a 4th title, so that puts them in the running with Seattle, with Minnesota, and of course with Houston. That being said, I think it's probably more of a when than an if that they will get that 4th championship. And everything that you said, Terrika, that when we get to that point, I think we can really classify this Aces team and really be able to compare. I know some people will say, oh, well, the first playoff series championship was 1 game or only 3 games, and this had potential to go to 7. Those are all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but I like what you talked about when it came to the resiliency, how the team has done it. I think if you go back to Houston, when they lost Kim Perrott, that was a rallying cry. 3 for Kim. And
having Cheryl Swoop the first time.
Exactly. And then you look at Lauren Jackson, and then bringing in Lauren Jackson and Sue Bird, and Sue Bird having a season where, she is a prolific shooter, but had to get there in the playoffs to help that Seattle team. But I don't know, if I had to gauge, I still think there's a little work for this Aces team to do to go up against a Minnesota Lynx team that also could get, they're already at 4, so they could get to 5. And Minnesota is probably going to want to get a little something back after not once but twice missing the opportunity to get a 5th title, which we know is important to that team. So I guess what I'm saying is we got a lot of great WNBA basketball ahead of us, and the conversation only starts here. It doesn't end with this championship for the Las Vegas Aces.
Right, and it's got to be helpful for the Aces having A'ja Wilson, a player that's the first player in league history to win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP, and the scoring title in the same season, as Terrika mentioned earlier. But we got to talk about the Mercury. It was a tough one for the Mercury. Going into the season, though, I think the finals were not the expectation. They only had 2 players returning from the previous season. They did leave it all on the court. Erica, you mentioned how Nate Tibbetts in the 3rd quarter gets ejected. Mercury down 20. They cut it to 6, but weren't able to get it done. So, Erica, what were your thoughts on the effort from Phoenix, not just in Game 4, but in this series as a whole?
This Mercury team never felt that they were out of it. I will say that there were times where they didn't necessarily put their full force into the game, especially a game where they needed to get this win. The Tibbetts ejection, maybe some other things really got them going. Kalia Copper deciding that she was going to force the issue and get to the line a few times. But what stands out to me, Terrika, is the turnovers. And I think that goes to, again, maybe just not being here as a team completely. Having veterans that have won championships, but never having done it together. And 18 turnovers to the tune of 26 points. I mean, if they could even get half of that back, this is a different game. We think about even in Game 3, controversial call in the first half, a shot clock violation that wasn't called, and they lose that one. And so what I like for Phoenix, it might take them a while to get there, but what I like for Phoenix is if they just sharpen things a little bit, if they're able to get healthy. We, of course, again, hope Satu Sabali is okay. Alyssa Thomas, I mean, we know DeWanna Bonner has been dealing with illness. This is a team that if they can keep some of that core together, that they now have that hurt heart space that can drive them moving forward.
The other thing that I would add to that as well is that I know that Nate Tibbetts is in his second year here, but there will absolutely need to be some adjustments made from the coaches as well, because we got to point, just a little bit of a finger at some of the way that the coaching strategies in this matchup just over the course of these 4 games kind of shifted the dynamic. Number one, I like in this game the way he was able to go to his bench early on.
Yes.
You could see the immediate impact
Yes.
of Kalani Brown. The problem with that is that it took Satu Sabali not being here in order for you to do that. And I think that was part of the criticism that we had for Nate Tibbetts, is that utilize your bench a bit more. Second thing too, defensive effort. In that moment in which Nate Tibbetts was dismissed from this game and ejected, you saw the defensive effort kind of materialize in a way that we had not seen since maybe game 1. They really stepped up really big. They started to get out and get the loose balls, second chance opportunities on the boards. Like, they were really bringing the intensity, and that's something I feel has to start with your coach pushing the issue. The other thing that stood out to me from a coaching perspective is there was a challenge that was placed in the first half, and later on in the fourth quarter, when this was a 6-point game, there was a shift in which there was a call underneath in which the ball went out of bounds, and it looked as if it was on Asia Wilson. It looks like it was on Asia Wilson, and I believe that it was. The problem is there was no challenges left for Phoenix to make in order to try to get the ball, and it really shifted the ends of this matchup. So all in all, I just think that, in the future, one thing that he will have to do is just kind of reevaluate some of the coaching decisions and play calling here and see how that can be adjusted in order to push this team to the next level.
Lots to learn from for Phoenix, lots to build on for Vegas as the Aces become the 2025 WNBA champions. Terrika, Foster-Brasby, Ayala, Ayala, thanks so much for the insight. Asia Wilson was dominant in this game, in this series, in this postseason, winning the WNBA Finals MVP. Winning the MVP and the Finals MVP in the same season is a rare list. She's the first player to do it since Breanna Stewart did it in 2018. But add Defensive Player of the Year and a scoring title to that accolades list, Asia Wilson's the only one to do all 4.